I didn't go as far as saying he's a jockstrap. I said he...
We just lost our sponsor. Great.
Welcome to the Two Authors Podcast, an entertaining chat show hosted by best-selling mystery and thriller authors Douglas Pratt and Nicholas Harvey, in lively, humorous and informative conversation with distinguished guests who share their thoughts and experience about forging a successful author career.
Welcome to this week's show, everyone, brought to you by the ever fabulous, wonderful, and amazing Vellum, the best formatting solution in the whole wide world. I know you already know this because you use this and all, but did you know Vellum has a really cool social media icon and link feature so you can, instead of having a bunch of those clunky URLs all through your book, you can put a nice little icon and it'll link it straight to your socials.
Absolutely. In the back, like on your author page, I always put it there. And then in the print edition, you can have it just show up as an icon on the bottom of that page. And in the ebook, it's a clickable link. Really cool.
I guess you could just put it on every page if you really wanted to.
You could, if you wanted to annoy the shit out of people.
Annoy the hell out of your readers. But, so it's possible. So, hey, also a big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters out there. And we have a couple of new ones this week.
Woohoo!
Yes. Author Shannon Archer and
Shannon.
The fabulous Brad West of Vellum joined us too.
He's double supporting us. He's like
double supporting us.
Brad West is like braces and belts.
That's right.
Supports
Very
us in
nice.
all ways.
In every way, yeah.
I didn't go as far as saying he's a jockstrap. I said he...
We just lost our sponsor. Great.
Moving on.
It was not me this time. So. Anyway, if you do feel like, honestly, if you guys feel like you get any value from us at all, or it's not just that while we appreciate the Patreon, the support and stuff, if you're feeling like this is a valuable thing, this is a great chance just to kind of, hey, throw us a little support there over on Patreon. So if you just visit us at patreon.com/the Two Authors Podcast, and we have a few extras in the free tier, but you can also listen to the podcast there if you want to. And you'll get a bonus question from our guests every week if you just kind of join that next tier. So
be a jockstrap over on Patreon.
Be a jockstrap over on Patreon. Hey, but guess what? Who our guest is today? We have what is going to be a phenomenal guest in the podcast world, especially in the author podcast world. This is it. So we're going to have to get to chat with Joe Penn here in just a minute. But before we do that, we have a listener question from Bernie in California. He said, do you do in-person signings and are they profitable?
As a nomad, it's pretty tricky to carry books around all the places. And when we were living in the RV, storing piles of books in an RV. So the short answer for me is no, I don't regularly do them. I did do an event. I did a scuba show event last year.
Last year, yeah.
I think it was last year in Long Beach. Actually, it was in LA. It's back in Long Beach again. It's the Long Beach Scuba Show. And it was a ton of fun. It went well. It didn't make money, but it went well. And I got to meet a lot of existing readers who are also divers. And it was fantastic to be in that world for a weekend and spend time there. But honestly, I went into it knowing it wasn't be a money maker. It was going to be a exposure thing more than anything. But you've done some more, haven't you?
I've done several of them. I don't do a lot. I try to do at least, maybe 3 or 4 a year. They are never profitable, but that's okay. That's really not why I'm doing them. To me, it's about an opportunity to engage with fans, and not every one of them. Like sometimes I go to do them and I get 1 or 2 and no fans have come out. I'm in some obscure part of Georgia or something. But when I have had most of them, I've had people show up who have been fans. And to me, it's about engaging with them and getting a chance to really connect. And not necessarily with just fans, because even the other people who come to a signing are they're readers. It's not like your signing was, you got divers, which is big for yours. But if you just go to a good book show, like I've done some other great ones at BoucherCon and Readers Take Denver and done a few for the tropical authors, you always get some people who are engaged because they're readers and they're interested by it. So your profitability is going to depend on your product for the most part. Like I can't go to a romance one and sell, action thrillers at all.
No,
so.
But there's, and we're saying we didn't make money on the events that we have done, but it's not really our niche either. So there's a lot of authors out there that do a lot of these signings and they are profitable doing it. Some of them make quite a lot of money doing it. And especially some of these big romance signing events where readers come to. They can be really big, but also
romance is a whole
stuff.
other ball game there too. But
it is.
I will say, and then one of the things I do, even though I know it's not profitable for me, it is important to factor in the cost for it. I mean, if you're going to treat this like a business, that's as part of your business. It's fun to do those signings, but you got to factor in, when you think about profitability, you got travel, you got however much it costs to be there, and your books.
And the flip side, you have read through, right? So if you can break even doing a local signing event, you're in the black because you're going to get read through from some of the people that are there.
And fans want to be involved and they want to be engaged. Once you meet a fan who picked up a book for the first time at a signing and got it, I guarantee you they almost always read all your stuff. So you've got a fan for life at that point. Well, now let's move on to our week's guest. She writes thrillers, if you didn't know this, under the pen name of J.F. Penn. She's an award-winning New York Times USA Today best-selling author of thrillers, dark fantasy, crime, horror, short stories, and some travel memoirs. She also writes nonfiction for authors under her name Joanna Penn and is the host of 2 podcasts, a little less known one called The Creative Penn. You may have heard of that one. Also the one on books and travel. Joanna is well known for speaking at author events, and her insights into the indie publishing world, and pretty much any indie author who has been out there for any amount of time has listened to at least something that she has said. So let's welcome Jo to the show.
Joanna Penn, I got to say this is an honor for us to have you on our little podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Give us a little bit of background on when you were first into writing and when you were first published.
Yeah, sure. So I always journaled, angsty teenager, and I had a lot of pen pals. So I did a lot of writing letters. I so wish now that I kept some of those letters. But I do have all my diaries. I have a lot of journals from many, many years. Then, I did jobs and the thing, and I wanted to change my life. I hit 30 like you do, and I was like, I need to do something else. I'm so miserable. I was an IT consultant. And so I started writing seriously in 2005. So as we record this, like 20 years now, I was like, I'm going to write a self-help book about changing your life. And I wrote that book. It was called How to Enjoy Your Job or Find a New One, which later rewrote as Career Change. And then I looked at the publishing industry. This was 2007. So this was the year the iPhone came out, the Kindle came out. And I was like, okay, traditional publishing looks like it takes a really long time and I can't see any authors making money. I was running my own business. I ran lots of my own businesses. So I was like, what is self-publishing? Let's try that. And again, this was very early days. The word indie was not being used at the time. Self-publishing was a real stigma. So I first self-published 2007 and then I went full-time in 2011. So yeah, it's been a while now.
Wow, you were at the birth of all this business and rode the wave of the golden years.
She was the first person to put something on Kindle. I think that's probably what it came down to.
No, I wasn't. I mean, what's so crazy is that at that point, there were a whole load of Americans because non-Americans weren't even allowed to publish on Kindle. So we went through Smashwords back then. But it was the people who came out of traditional publishing with a massive backlist. So, early authors like Bella Andre and Joe Conrath and people like that who came out with 40, 50 books that they'd been writing for years and then went hard into that world. So yeah, it was a very different time then. But now it's crazy. We have so much choice now. We can basically do anything. And I love making these really beautiful hard copies and stuff with foil. And that's the bit I love. Like I'm a real book nerd as well. So I love the creative side of the whole thing. But yeah, things have just got better and better, I think.
Okay, so we're going to side door into your special editions here because you're a scuba diver and we're both scuba divers, so we have to talk a little bit about diving. And you have a Kickstarter going on with a new series of short stories, I believe, and you've managed to weave some diving into it. Talk about that.
It's my first short story collection with over a decade's worth of short stories in, and it's called The Buried and the Drowned. So that will give you a few clues. But basically, it does have a story I've written about diving at the Poor Knights Islands in New Zealand. So just to wind the clock back in the year 2000, I left London, flew to Western Australia, learnt to dive in Fremantle and in that Perth area, and then went up Ningaloo Reef on the west side of Australia, which is incredible. And then then I went down the East Coast, so doing the Great Barrier Reef and all of that. And then I flew to New Zealand and did the Poor Knights Islands and some other places in New Zealand. But I had some amazing experiences there, became a dive master, started a scuba diving business. And now, I guess all these years later, I just finally decided to write a story about a time, well, really sparked by a time I dived alone. And you guys know this is not advisable. And yet when you're an experienced diver, you may do that at some point. It is really not, you should not do this. And the time I did this, I had one of those moments where you wonder about staying down there. And that visceral feeling, and I was probably narked and all that, but it was I just felt like staying. And that kind of call of the void, as sometimes it's called, I was like, okay, I haven't written about it, I haven't really talked about it because those feelings are sort of not very acceptable. But one of the stories that is exclusive to this edition is sparked by that experience. Right. But yeah, New Zealand, amazing diving.
So talk a bit more about the Kickstarter. This isn't the first Kickstarter you've done, right?
No, it's my 6th Kickstarter, and I've done different books. I've done standalone thrillers. I've done book 13 in my Arcane archaeological thriller series, which is more action-adventure like your books, although with a bit more supernatural. I've done my pilgrimage memoir, which is a travel memoir. I've done non-fiction for authors. So one of the wonderful things about Kickstarter is that it's not so algorithm-based. It's far more interest-based, and it's far more book geek-based, where you offer beautiful things, your creative work in different ways. So I do these beautiful hardback editions with custom art and ribbons and foil and all this, just gorgeous things. And then obviously the ebook and the audiobook and paperback, all the usual stuff, plus webinars and consulting. And so you can offer lots of things, and then you do it for like a couple of weeks, and the author makes a lot more money than you make selling on other platforms. So I also just love it because you can, to do these beautiful hardbacks, you have to do essentially pre-orders for them. And Kickstarter enables you to do these lovely pre-orders. And I think this is a way to really set yourself apart as an author in a world where most traditionally published authors don't get a foiled hardback edition. And as an author, I just feel super proud of my books. Like, I love having them on my shelf. So my fans are happy, I'm happy. And also it's much more satisfying marketing wise, because you really do a marketing push for a short amount of time and then you can back off, which I also prefer. I don't like to market all the time. So yes, if people are interested, The Buried and the Drowned, it's at jfpenn.com/buried. And it runs 1st to 15th of September, 2025. And then the book will be out in all the usual places.
Fantastic. And we'll have a link in the show notes, of course. So how are you reaching those people for the Kickstarter mainly? Is that based from newsletter? Is that where the core of people signing up?
Obviously the basis of all our businesses is email. So email marketing for sure. But also I have 2 podcasts, the Creative Penn Podcast and Books and Travel. So I have an audience there. You have to bring most people, and then there is a Kickstarter discovery algorithm. So if people are searching for short stories, so for example, I buy a ton of short story collections on Kickstarter as a backer. And I find authors there I never would have found in other ways, like on Amazon, because the discovery is quite a different engine. It's not about sales rank or anything, because it's like a pre-order. So it's kind of a completely different mindset and a very enjoyable way to sell. But yeah, you have to bring an audience. I mean, you can start from nothing on Kickstarter and kind of use that as the basis to grow and start small and build up over time. So yeah, it's a great platform and part of the kind of selling direct model.
I got a quick sidebar on that one. So like for people who are doing a Kickstarter, like I did one and I haven't done another one mainly because it didn't fund. And so I just haven't, and I know it was entirely my fault because that's generally the way things work. So, but, well, that's what my wife says, at least. I don't know. She's pretty much said it's my fault. But when you talk about like when it doesn't fund, like that can be a discouragement. Was that something you ever found? Like, did you ever have one that didn't fund, or did they all fund out for you?
All of mine are funded, but there's a trick to this, which is you put a really low number on it. So I will only have $500 on my Kickstarter to fund it because I'm publishing this book anyway. And I've written the book, I've done the audiobook, it's all ready to go. I have it here. But this is the way to sell it. So the people who I think fail on Kickstarter are those that put too high a funding level. Whereas if you're going to publish the book anyway, then I don't understand why people do that. So you just put a couple of $100 down and, you say, I need to make $500 or $200, sell an ebook. Like that would be my recommendation for people. Just do an ebook and a paperback. That's all you need to do to start off with, get some confidence under your belt. And then next time you can do a few more things. Like, I've expanded the number of gorgeous, expensive print things over time because those are the expensive stuff. But yeah, it's all about the design of the campaign, basically.
So you're saying $10,000 for my, one ebook probably was too much is really what it comes down.
Yeah, that might be.
I'm just kidding. No, so I've read some of your books, and you have, like, we're talking about the diving. Adventure seems to be really common theme for you. Where did that passion come from?
Yeah, well, probably like many of us our age, I sort of grew up reading the Hardy Boys and Wilbur Smith and, Clive Cussler, since we all have a Dirk Pitt probably in our minds as to terms of Clive Cussler books. And so I grew up reading those books. And then when I was 8, my mum took us to live in Malawi in Central Africa. So, we had a lion at school and we had, it was just a very different way to grow up. And then I've always traveled as a solo woman and also with groups, and then my husband and everything. So I think I've always been inspired as a reader by sort of writer adventurers like Bruce Chatwin, Freya Stark, and people who did these sort of adventuring writing things. So I guess it's, a combination of being a reader of these genres, but also traveling from an early age. Like I said, one of my first memories is flying to Malawi, and back in the day when you were allowed to go into the cockpit, and we went up there as kids, and I saw the sunrise on the Sahara Desert, and I will never forget that. And in fact, in my book, my thriller Death Valley, which was my last novel, I write about that in my author's note. It's like the desert was in my mind from those early years, and I'll just never forget that view. And of course, now you're not allowed in the cockpit.
No.
So,
yeah.
even as a child, I doubt if they're allowed in anymore. So it was one of those sort of moments in time that inspired, I guess, a lot of my work.
So you write fiction, non-fiction in the author space and outside. You've got Pilgrimage and the new Gothic cathedral project you're working on, which you're also doing the photos for, if I'm not mistaken. You run a top author podcast on the planet, which you mentioned, the Creative Penn. It's a little show that you have.
A little show. It's only been around 15 years. A little show, yes. Yeah, so it's been a while.
Plus a books and travel podcast. You're a long-distance hiker. You've got the Kickstarters going on. You've got this Kick-Ass Direct Sales website. You're an event speaker.
All right. Hold on. Nick. I got to take a nap after that. Hold on a second.
I'm wearing myself out just reading this list of shit. From the outside, it looks like you have this massive workload. Is that true? And how do you balance it?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I really don't feel that myself. I think it's because I'm a project-based person. So most of the things I do are projects, and I only really work on one book at a time. And I finish the book, I do the Kickstarter, I put the book on all the platforms, and then I get on with the next project. So right now, as you mentioned, the Gothic Cathedral project is the active creative work I'm doing. The Buried and the Drowned, that book is finished, but the next launch project I'm doing is the Kickstarter. But again, that's only 2 weeks. And because I've done a lot of them, I know what I'm doing. And it's really a few emails, a couple of podcast episodes, a bit of social media, which I don't even really do anymore. So, and then, yes, the podcast is weekly, but I batch a lot of my interviews. So like next week, I'm doing about 15 interviews, and that will take me up to Christmas. So I guess I am like super organized in that way, but I work on projects. And then, like you mentioned my book, Pilgrimage, again, that's a done book. And what's funny is I had an interview about it last week or something, and they were like, oh, we want to talk about this book. And of course, I completely forgotten that book.
Can't remember anything about it.
So I'm like, oh yeah, let me remember that again. And so I pull it out and go back through it. I'm like, oh, this is quite enjoyable. I'm quite enjoying this. And so and I imagine you guys do this too, because you have so many series and you're like, seriously, I can't remember what the hell that was about. But I mean, that's part of the project approach of being an author, I think. So it might look like I'm doing a lot, but actually I tend to split my time. In the morning, I create something. In the afternoon, I do interviews and business. So this is in my afternoon. And this morning, I spent like 4 hours reading books on Gothic cathedrals and processing my photos from my research trip last week. So York cathedral. So that's on my books and travel website.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome. So let's talk about your podcast just a second, because we love to do podcasts, and you are the premier podcast for authors. One of the things that I think Nick and I both found is the amount of inspiration and lessons we've gotten from our guests. Could you kind of share some of the bigger, in the 15 years you've been doing this, or I guess 16 at this point, some of the biggest inspirations and influences and lessons you might have picked up from guests?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think probably the first big one was back in 2009 when a guest challenged me, a guy called Tom Evans challenged me on writing fiction. I had never thought about writing fiction. I was a huge reader of it, but I was like, I can't do that. And he's like, sounds like you have a block. And I was like, no, I don't get blocks. And then he really uncovered that. And that started me writing my first novel, which became Stone of Fire, the book one in my Arcane series, a bit like Dan Brown, Da Vinci Code. So that was definitely sparked from the podcast. Another big one, business-wise, I would say the Kickstarter stuff. I had said for years, I will not do a Kickstarter. Definitely not. I was afraid of failure, like you mentioned, Doug. I was afraid of having too many bosses, like, oh no, what if it's super successful and like all these people want stuff from me? And what if I get the numbers wrong? There was a lot of fear around it. And then once I discussed it with people on my show and I asked lots of questions, I was like, right, I'm going to do it. And Pilgrimage was my first one. Weird book because I'm not a Christian. So it's like a book on pilgrimage by this not a Christian. And it went really well and it was perfect because it's so not a genre. It's niche book and all the midlife memoir and all this. So starting to do Kickstarters a couple of years ago now has completely changed my business. Selling direct and Kickstarters, they freed my brain. I know you guys at KU, you're wedded to Amazon, but the freedom I have found from not really caring, actually making the bulk of my money direct, just means I literally just don't look at these things. Money comes in and I just don't even worry about it. So
that's what I do with bills.
So to be clear,
when my bills come in, I just ignore them. I'm like, whatever, it's not a big deal. It's the same thing, right? I look at it like that.
The fact is that I control my own websites. I control my own audience, and you guys know how it is. Lots of people get cancelled, or something happens, or you lose your account, or something happens. And I used to have a lot of those angsty things going on, and now I just don't. And so I feel like I learned a lot from my guests around reducing the fear of changing direction, which has been wonderful.
Let's touch on the selling direct. You've really built a store and concentrated on being able to supply direct. Am I right in saying that's a big piece of your marketplace at the moment?
Yeah, so Kickstarter plus my 2 Shopify stores. So to me, selling direct is the Kickstarter, like twice a year. And then the Shopify stores are there all the time. They just sell. But I don't do any physical shipping myself. All the orders go to my printer and they get sent, printed in the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and sent to people. But I mean, again, you have to have your systems in place. But those things are, you set them up and then you just carry on. So when I launch a book, I just upload it there in the same way you guys would upload to Amazon. I also upload to Amazon. I still am everywhere. It is a mindset shift. But once you set these things up, you just plug in the next book. So there's no real maintenance as far as I'm concerned.
And I say I am jealous, especially with the craziness in Amazon at the moment, and that you have a way too big a smile on your face when you say, I don't care.
It's just a relief. You can get on with the rest of your life.
Well,
no kidding.
It is kind of handy.
I'm trying to encourage you guys. I'm trying to encourage you. I think, but as I said, I've been doing this a really long time, and there comes a point when you start weighing up what you want. This is a tip to anyone listening, like wherever you are in your career or your life or your age, you have to say, well, what matters to me? What matters the most? And how do I want my day-to-day life to be? So you make choices. And maybe I don't make as much money as people in KU. Maybe I do. Maybe I make more. Who knows? But basically, it's more that I just have the freedom. And my number one value is freedom. So that makes a difference.
That's brilliant. As we chat about off-air before we came on a little bit, is the tricky part with if you've gone down the path of being in KU and you have a reasonable level of success, the tricky part is then transitioning out without taking a big hit or a chunk of a hit as you pull a series out, right? Because you're not going to just pull everything out and go, I'm going wide and I'm going to start from nothing, because you would take a massive hit.
But somebody will, but that's not the smart. Yeah. It's not the smart business decision to do that.
Probably not the ultimate thing. But as you mentioned, taking maybe a new series that you start and going wide with it, you're initially going to take a step back, almost certainly, for a little bit of time, but build, right?
Yeah, or you do it with a completely different kind of project, like I did with Pilgrimage. So, for example, Nick, with your scuba diving, it could be a memoir about scuba diving around the world that you might launch on Kickstarter with a photo edition, which is what I'll do with Gothic Cathedrals. And then, when stuff about your trips and all that your super fans want, and you cannot do a good enough job of that using just the Amazon printing. So you do that on Kickstarter, launching it that way, introducing your fans to how they can get these special books from you. Then you put that ebook and paperback in KU later, because the wonderful thing about launching, say, on Kickstarter is you can do that. It's nowhere. You are already wide, but then you can put the book into KU. So my thriller Death Valley right now is in KU. So I launched it on Kickstarter. I've put it into KU, and it will be in there probably for 6 months to a year, get some reviews on, and then I'll put it wide. So yeah, so it's really you don't have to be one or another. We're living in this world where you can do everything like that.
Yeah. You can be hybrid.
Do it with that special.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm doing is trying to do my pre-orders wide. That way, if it gives me a chance to start building an audience elsewhere, and then still bumping them into KU as soon as they launch. So I'm not finding a lot of success, but I just started doing that. So I think it's going to take a little time to build that up.
Yeah, you got to build it somewhere.
This is the thing. If you have built your email list on people who read in KU,
right, then you have a whole.
You're basically, this is a completely different market. People who binge read in KU are a different market. So you have to be thinking about, okay, I have to have 2 strategies. But that's why I say start with some kind of special book that your fans are like, oh yeah, I'm going to pay $30, $40. Like my average order value on Kickstarter is between $40 and $60. Whereas on a KU book, you might, $3 or $4, $5 or whatever. So that's how you have to think. You can't just offer them an ebook wide, Doug, sorry, but they know they're going to get it in KU. Why would I get it at wide? But what I might buy is some kind of special, gorgeous thing that you don't do elsewhere. So you do have to change the mindset, but I also want to encourage people the creativity and the fun you can have in doing these different kinds of projects. That's how I want you to think about it too, a project. Then it becomes, okay, how do I, what do I want to bring into that? How could I make it really interesting to people? How can I do different kinds of marketing? Because I would venture to say you two are probably a bit jaded about marketing into KU at this point.
Not so much. Nick's jaded about everything, but I'm not so much. I'm pretty open-minded. I balance that. I'm open-minded. I balance it with being lazy. So it's kind of a toss-up right there.
You say that, but what I love is doing marketing push twice a year. So who's lazy now?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. You're about to sell me on it. I'm like, I could just not do anything. So.
Yeah, but that's actually another reason to do it. And a lot of the reason that KU authors who are burned out decide to do this model, because they don't want to do the 4 to 6 books a year, which personally I've never done. But doing 2 bigger launches plus the back end sales, it just changes the energy involved in being an author, which I think is what we need for the longevity of it. Because, I've been doing this a long time and most people leave the business. So it's a question of how do we maintain our creativity, our happiness, our freedom, and the money, which, of course, we all love.
Yeah, money's
nice. Of course. Well, we need as well. We love, yes. But we need. Yeah. All right, let's move on to some other stuff. There's so many things to talk to you about, but this one we're going to mention that the magic 2 words here. So you were at the forefront in the author community in embracing AI as a tool, and we're boldly discussing it, the topic ahead of most folks on your Creative Penn podcast. What did you see in the AI world that gave you confidence to be talking about it so boldly so early?
In 2016, when I saw the AlphaGo beat Lisa Doll, the game of Go, and it was the first creative move. And when they were using this word creative, I was like, oh, interesting. And so that's when I started talking about it, 2016, and had people on my show. People just thought I was bonkers. People always think I'm bonkers because I'm often early. And then in 2020, I wrote a book about the next decade for authors, which is basically coming true. Even 5 years later, like I got asked to write another edition. I was like, no, it's still coming true. So
yeah, it's still playing out. It's got another 5 years.
Yeah, I don't need to write anything else. But I mean, I think I was as I mentioned earlier, I was an IT consultant for 13 years. So I'm pretty, happy with technology and have always used it. And so I was just like, great, this gives us more tools. Also, I think because I didn't come from traditional publishing, I went straight into indie, and I was in this wave. Like, none of us would have a career really without the iPhone and the Kindle. Like, these two changes in technology, the ebook, and then the podcast, the downloadable audiobook, streaming audio, subscription models, all these things changing, like print on demand technology. You wouldn't believe how long it took people to talk about print on demand, for goodness sake. I think whenever there was an opportunity to use technology, I was using it. I did my podcast early on. It was Skype, and, I kept jumping on the tools, and I've changed them over time. Just generally jumped on everything. So when the AI stuff arrived, I jumped on that too. And I feel like a lot of the reaction, I mean, there's good and bad in every technology. So you can use a tool for bad things as well as good things. The internet is full of absolute crap, as we know. But again, we wouldn't have business without it. And we love it for lots of other things. And who would want to be without it at this point? So I feel like for me, it was just a case of, here's another tool. This is awesome. What can I do with it? And as things have moved on, I just embrace the next thing.
Looking down the road, where do you think the legality stuff for authors is heading? And especially, there's a lot of question over labeling and how will AI be labeled and different things. Where do you think that's going to take us?
Well, on the legality, it's already different. For example, in the UK, you have copyright over anything you create, even if a machine creates it. Whereas in the US, that is not true, which is a reason a lot of the companies have companies over here. So that's interesting. Obviously, we've had the fair use for training. We've had 2 rulings on that in the US, and the administration is AI accelerationist. There is no way this is going back in the box. So as far as I'm concerned, you look at the legality of your jurisdiction, you look at the legality of the tools. So for example, if you use Midjourney, I've been doing my book covers with Midjourney for a couple of years now, and the commercial license, you have commercial usage. So check the terms and conditions on the tools. Do not ever use anyone's name in prompting. Do not use an artist's name, an author's name. I just think don't do that. And you will probably avoid most of the issues that people talk about. The fact is, we are, all of us here, and probably people listening to, we are confident in our author voice. We know what we're doing. We are creators. We don't want to just press a button and output a book. That's not what we're talking about here. So we're using it to amplify our own ideas, our own writing. And so I think in terms of legality, I think we're already way past that. And also, even if you say that there is no copyright in an AI created work, people are still selling them. You can still sell it. So
that's the big problem, right? Is what is and what isn't, and how much it was influenced, and how much. There's really no way, apart from the.
There is no way of telling anymore.
No, and the platforms are asking you, did you use? Well, the people that are using it to cheat the system aren't going to say yes, are they?
Well, but also I would argue that most of us who use it are not trying to cheat anyone. We use it.
No. I'm not saying that you or people at that level, but the people that are just churning out this AI generated junk and swamping the Kindle market with them at the moment, which is causing a lot of trickle down problems, which you don't care about.
Okay, so this would be another reason to take control of your sales and your author business, is because this is not going to stop. I really believe that digital is going to zero. I mean, we've just seen it yesterday. In fact, it might even have been this morning. Google just launched Gemini Storybooks. So people can go look this up. So it is the first generate to market product, I think, that we've seen. But I've been talking about this for a while. So you basically say, give me this kind of kids book. Here's a picture of my cat. And it generates a 10-page book for you based on your ideas and your prompts. So that's Gemini Storybooks. We're going to have so much generate to market, so much content. So it's only going to get worse. And why should Amazon care? Because readers get what they need. It's not their business to protect your business. So I feel like this is another reason. And to differentiate, you need to develop a closer relationship with your audience. And no AI mass market creator is going to be doing hardback foiled editions of their special books. So again, these are, to me, the way to stand out in an ever more crowded market.
So let me ask you a question now. It's one we ask everybody. But what do you consider to be your author superpower?
I think it is finishing. So as I mentioned, I am pretty organized, well, very organized. And when I commit to a project, I finish it, I publish it, I market it, I basically follow through. And it's interesting because there's a lot of people who start a lot of books and never finish them or never publish them or whatever. So I think it is a bit of a superpower to finish. I'm very goal orientated across all of my life. So yeah, I feel like that is good, but that doesn't mean you have to be. I think we all have our different superpowers.
But cool. That's great. We have one more question before we let you off the hook. Doug has our fantastic,
wheel of questions. So
excellent. Okay, spinning.
Got my little sound effects. What do you consider to be your breakthrough moment as an author?
I have never had a breakthrough moment. I've never had a breakout successful book. I've never had like a podcast episode that went viral, never had a viral video, never had one of those. I feel like that should hopefully encourage people because, you know, I have a really good business. I've been full-time for a long time and I make a very good living. And you don't need to be a breakout success to do this. You can be like a happy mid-list author doing well, selling to your fans and being happy with it. So I've never had a breakout.
I love that answer because I mean, everyone's path is different, and there's no one way to go about this. We preach this all the time, and you know, there's a lot of people that have had a step, something that's really triggered and elevated them in a big step. But for the majority of people making their living doing what we're doing, that hasn't happened. It's slow and steady. I mean, there's stuff at the time that you think, oh man, somebody shared my book and that was a big boost for me. When you look back, it was a baby step. You know,
most of the time it didn't even move the needle.
It's just been this climb, right? And it ebbs and flows depending on the markets and what's going on and what you were able to do that year. But I love that answer. It is a slow and steady for the majority of us, and that's how you build a successful career. This has been an absolute pleasure.
I have to say, like, when talking to you, Joe, it's always, and one of the things I think makes your podcast so great is you are so infectiously just excited about the industry. And so when you listen to you talk about it and knowing you've been in this business for, pushing 20 years at this point, and that's
he keeps trying to make you sound really old, doesn't he? He keeps doing that.
I am 50.
I'm just saying, like, it's great to hear like that kind of infectious just joy that you seem to exude about the business. It's just wonderful. I know you've touched a lot of people, a lot of authors, including both of us who listen to. Yeah, for sure.
Both of us, for sure. Your podcast has been a major influence over the years.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And it's why, I continue because I'm still enthusiastic. Like, when things start to, when we start to get jaded, then I won't want to do it anymore. So I think that's really important, is to keep that in mind for people. And if you're listening and you're just starting out, then it is about finding that joy and finding what you love in it. So thanks so much for having me today.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming on, Joe. Appreciate it. That truly was something special to be able to chat with Joe. It's been
she's a legend, really.
Yeah, she is, and she's so lovely.
It was great talking to her. Like, just because, again, like I said, she is so just infectiously joyous about this industry. She's been around longer than I have. I've been around since 2011 and not full time since 2020. So it's long enough that I can see sometimes there have been a lot of people who've come and gone who were big back, early 2010s. disappeared now. And I think part of that is they didn't find a way to keep it joyful. Like it's a lot of work. It can be a challenge. And I know she obviously says she doesn't have to work a lot, but I think that's because she enjoys it.
Well, and also we talked in our little Patreon bit that we recorded with her. She has efficiency. That's one of the things. She's just very efficient with what she does. And she said she's project based. So she's very good at compartmentalizing those projects and going, here's from A to Z how I'm going to handle this project. And this is how I'm going to do it over this period of time. And then here's the next project. She has a very high efficiency in doing that stuff, which is great. But you're right. She's found a place where she's having a good time. And if she's not enjoying what she's doing, or she feels like it's becoming stale, she's going to change it up. And she talked about some of the things in our little Patreon bit that she's looking at potentially changing up down the road. And I think that's super important. Like you said, you've been in this around this biz, twice as long as I have or longer. And we're both in that stage of our careers where we're doing well, we're making a living, we're supporting our families on it, but it's a slog, and we're working our asses off to do that. So finding a balance that allows us less stressful and back off the throttle pedal a little bit would be nice. I think that's she introduced a lot of thoughts about that.
I do think the other side is, and like we said, it is something that she enjoys doing. And, there's that old adage, find something you love and you're not working. And it is a lot of work. We both work a lot. We're constantly going, but I don't think personally it's the best job I've ever had. And I work harder at it than I did any job I ever worked for anybody else for. So I think that's because I enjoy it and I enjoy seeing what I do. And she said, she loved seeing her books on the shelf. And I think that's also, there's just something about that, creating something and being able to see it out in the world that just, it's
very
powerful.
Rewarding.
It's very rewarding. So
yeah, awesome. That was really, really a neat episode. It was great to meet her in person. So, all right, big thanks to our friends at Vellum. We appreciate their support very much. Go to tryvellum.com/2authors to find out more.
Yeah, and don't forget, we have our new support our show over on Patreon. Like you said, we have an extra bonus bit with Joe. Just jump over there. It costs you, it's less than a cup of coffee.
Absolutely. And you get all these bonus bits and pieces, less than a cup of coffee.
Less than a Big Mac. You could get
way less than a Big Mac.
Way less. And inflation. It's healthier.
Yeah, tariffs have driven up the price of Big Macs. All right, so you'll find all the links in the show notes, all how to reach Jo. If you've never listened to her podcast, which I'm sure if you listen to ours, you already have, but if you haven't, go check out
15 years of it, so you've got plenty of time to go back and
plenty of listening. And there's great info in her shows. We'll be back next week with a new episode of Two Authors Podcast. Until next time, be cool to each other.
Fair winds and following seas.
You've been listening to the Two Authors Podcast with Nicholas Harvey and Douglas Pratt. Subscribe on your favorite platform for new shows coming every week.